The order is already moving before anyone sees it. It exists first as alignment. Lines of text reproduced without emphasis. Identical language carried across identical forms. Each copy is marked, logged, acknowledged, and passed along. No alterations are made. No clarifications are requested. The phrasing is precise enough to resist interpretation, broad enough to require none. It travels through rooms designed for reception, through desks arranged for compliance, through systems built to accept, record, and forward. It does not hurry. It does not pause. Its movement is measured in confirmations rather than speed. Those who handle it do not read it as a whole. They process sections, paragraphs, directives. The order is not an idea. It is an instruction. It requires no agreement, only execution. The language is formal, stripped of urgency, insulated from doubt. It refers to time without naming it, to movement without describing terrain, to objectives without acknowledging resistance. It assumes a stable world because the system that produced it depends on that assumption. Each recipient recognizes the structure immediately. This is not an invitation. It is not a suggestion. It carries the weight of precedent, stamped with the authority of routine. Similar orders have passed this way before. Most have ended quietly. Some have not. The difference is not recorded here. Acknowledgement is automatic. A signature, a timestamp, a brief notation indicating receipt and compliance. No commentary follows. Commentary is not required. The order continues downward, becoming more operational with each transfer. Sections are extracted, responsibilities assigned, timetables aligned. What began as abstract language is converted into movement, allocation, and readiness. The transformation is smooth. The system is practiced. No one asks why the sequence is arranged this. The arrangement is consistent with doctrine. Doctrine is consistent with training. Training is consistent with expectation. Expectation does not include deviation. Silence surrounds the process, not because it is enforced, but because it is unnecessary. There is nothing to add. The order contains everything it needs. In corridors and offices, the same actions repeat. Paper is placed, screens are updated, confirmations are sent. The order leaves no room for improvisation, and none is offered. By the time it reaches those who will act on it, the order feels inevitable. Not because it is understood, but because it is complete. It has passed through every required level. It has survived every procedural check. It has been accepted at every point where refusal would have been possible. The system has done its work. The outcome is already contained within the instruction, waiting only for time to catch up. The environment that receives the order is built for clarity. Every layer is defined by function rather than personality. Authority is distributed vertically, not laterally. Information does not circulate, it descends. Each level exists to reduce complexity, not to examine it. What arrives from above is assumed to be deliberate. What leaves below is assumed to be necessary. The order enters a structure that has been refined over time to remove friction. Each position has a designated scope of responsibility. Nothing outside that scope is visible, and nothing within it is optional. The system does not reward curiosity. It rewards accuracy. At the upper levels, the order is still conceptual. It is discussed in terms of compliance and readiness. Metrics are checked. Schedules are aligned. The question is not whether the order should proceed, but whether the conditions for proceeding meet established thresholds. Those thresholds are met because the order assumes they will be. As the order moves downward, language becomes more specific. Abstract directives are translated into operational segments. Each segment is assigned to a unit, a department, a team. No single recipient sees the full shape of the action. Each sees only the portion required to perform their task. This fragmentation is not accidental. It is structural. It prevents delay. It prevents contradiction. It ensures that no one individual carries responsibility for the whole. Responsibility is distributed, and in being distributed, it becomes diluted. Protocol governs every interaction. The order is never questioned directly because there is no mechanism for questioning built into its path. Questions would require a reversal of flow. The system is not designed for that. Meetings occur, but they are procedural. They confirm alignment. They ensure that each layer has received the correct version of the instruction. Deviations are discussed only in terms of execution, never intent. If a discrepancy is noted, it is resolved by reference to the original wording. The wording is treated as final. Those who occupy intermediary positions understand their role precisely. They are conduits. Their task is to ensure continuity, not interpretation. To alter the order would be to introduce uncertainty, and uncertainty is treated as a threat to cohesion. Training reinforces this understanding. From the beginning, individuals are conditioned to trust the structure above them. The assumption is that higher levels possess broader awareness. This belief is not tested here. It does not need to be. It is foundational. As the order descends, it encounters increasingly concrete realities: equipment, personnel, timeline. These realities are adjusted to fit the instruction, not the other way around. If constraints arise, they are documented and worked around. The order itself remains intact. There is efficiency in this process. Movements are synchronized. Resources are allocated with precision. The absence of debate accelerates preparation. What might have taken days is completed in hours. The system appears effective, even elegant. At no point does anyone stand outside the structure to observe it as a whole. There is no vantage point from which the cumulative effect of the order can be assessed. Each layer sees only what it needs to see, and what it sees appears manageable. Communication is formal and unidirectional. Reports move upward only to confirm compliance or readiness. They do not challenge assumptions. They do not alter plans. They serve as evidence that the system is functioning as intended. The chain of command remains unbroken. Authority is clear at every level. Instructions are acknowledged promptly. Delays are corrected. The machinery operates without hesitation. By the time the order reaches its lowest operational tier, it is no longer perceived as a decision. It is a condition, something that exists independently of those who will enact it. To question it would be to question the structure itself, and the structure does not answer questions. It only issues instructions. Execution begins without announcement. There is no moment that marks the transition from preparation to action. The order does not declare itself complete and ready. It simply enters the phase for which it was written. Timetables shift from planning to activation. Indicators change status. What was pending becomes current. The order is broken into sequences, each time to follow the previous one, without overlap or delay. Coordination replaces discussion. Signals are sent, received, and acknowledged. Each acknowledgement confirms not understanding, but compliance. Movements begin exactly when specified, not earlier, not later. The precision is intentional. The order relies on synchronization, and the system provides it. Every action is calibrated to match the instruction as written, not as perceived. Those carrying it out do so with familiarity. The procedures are known. They have been rehearsed in isolation, repeated in controlled conditions, refined until they require no explanation. The order fits neatly into existing frameworks of execution. Nothing feels improvised. Communication remains sparse and formal. Messages contain only what is required to maintain alignment. Status updates are factual, stripped of interpretation. There is no space for commentary. The order does not request feedback. Each element performs its assigned function without awareness of the whole. One group moves because a time has arrived. Another advances because a signal has been received. Another holds position because the sequence demands it. None of them know why the sequence is arranged this way. They do not need to. The system assumes that if coordination has been achieved, correctness has followed. The absence of contradiction is treated as confirmation. Silence is interpreted as success. There are moments where the environment does not match expectation. Minor discrepancies. Delays that require adjustment. These are resolved locally, within the boundaries of the order. No one alters the sequence itself. The structure remains fixed. Timing is enforced rigidly. When a phase ends, the next begins, regardless of conditions. The order does not pause to account for variation. It was not designed to. Reports move upward in the same controlled manner as before. Each report confirms execution according to plan. Deviations are noted only if they threaten completion, not if they suggest error. The priority is continuity. No one steps outside their role. No one looks beyond their assigned frame. The order does not permit that perspective. It distributes responsibility so narrowly that doubt has nowhere to accumulate. The process continues smoothly. Each completed action reinforces confidence in the next. The system reads its own efficiency as validation. There is no sense of danger yet, only motion, only adherence. The order unfolds exactly as intended, each step reinforcing the assumption that it will continue to do so. What cannot be seen from within the sequence is the accumulation of consequence. The system measures progress in completed tasks, not emerging risk. By the time the final stages of execution begin, the order has achieved total momentum. Stopping it would require interruption at multiple levels simultaneously. No such mechanism exists. The order is no longer being followed. It is being carried forward. The first signs do not register as failure. They appear as irregularities within acceptable margins. A delay that remains within tolerance. A report that arrives slightly out of sequence. A condition noted and logged without escalation. The system is designed to absorb variance, and it does so automatically. The order does not respond. It continues to define tempo and direction. The sequence advances as written. At the operational edges, alignment begins to strain. Timelines intersect where they were meant to pass cleanly. Movements that were designed to complement each other now overlap. The system compensates by enforcing priority rules already embedded in the instruction. Those rules were written earlier, under different assumptions. They remain in force. Information continues to move upward, but it changes character. Updates become more frequent. Language tightens. There is no alarm in the wording, only density, more data, less context. The structure interprets this as diligence, not warning. Local adjustments multiply. Small corrections layered on top of previous ones. Each correction is authorized within scope. None of them alter the order itself. The order is treated as fixed, and therefore correctable conditions must exist around it. The environment begins to resist the sequence. Conditions shift in ways not accounted for. The system acknowledges this resistance without redefining the objective. It assumes the resistance can be managed through discipline and adherence. There are moments when coordination falters. Signals arrive late. Confirmations are delayed. The response is procedural. Repeat transmission, escalate protocol, reassert timing. The order remains unchanged. The response to friction is reinforcement. At intermediate levels, the distinction between execution and containment begins to blur. Resources intended for progression are diverted to stabilization. This diversion is permitted under existing guidelines. It is recorded as temporary. The order does not recognize temporary states. It advances the sequence regardless. Reports begin to contradict each other without appearing to do so. Each is accurate within its frame. Together, they describe a system under strain. No single report captures this. No mechanism exists to synthesize them into a coherent warning. The chain of command remains intact, but communication slows. Not because of resistance, but because of volume. The system becomes saturated with confirmations, updates, and procedural acknowledgments. Critical information is not suppressed. It is diluted. At the point where adaptation would be required, the order offers only reinforcement. It contains no conditional language, no alternative pathway. It assumes continuity as a given. Those executing it respond accordingly. They do not improvise. They intensify compliance. Precision increases. Timing becomes stricter. The belief is that error lies in deviation, not in design. The structure rewards this response. Units that adhere most closely to the instruction are noted as effective. Deviations, even those that mitigate immediate risk, are flagged for. The message is clear and consistent. The failure begins to take shape, not as a sudden break, but as a convergence. Multiple small inconsistencies align. Timelines compress. Margins disappear. The system continues to register progress because tasks are being completed. Completion becomes indistinguishable from advancement. There are moments when the order's assumptions are visibly violated. Conditions it presumes no longer exist. These moments are recorded, categorized, and forwarded. They do not interrupt execution. They are treated as anomalies to be resolved downstream. Downstream does not exist within the order. As pressure increases, the structure tightens. Authority becomes more centralized. Decision-making narrows further. The intent is to preserve coherence. The effect is rigidity. The order remains the reference point for every action. Even as evidence accumulates that its premises no longer hold, the system continues to align itself to its language. To abandon the order would be to introduce uncertainty greater than the risk already present. The sequence advances into phases that were designed to follow success, not strain. The transition occurs automatically. Preconditions are assumed met, because the system has no mechanism to declare them unmet. By the time the first irreversible consequences occur, they are indistinguishable from scheduled outcomes. Loss is recorded as expenditure, disruption as friction. The terminology absorbs the reality without naming it. The order continues to function. It is only now that its design begins to show itself, not as intention, but as inevitability. The collapse does not announce itself. There is no single moment where structure gives way to chaos. What occurs is an accumulation that exceeds the system's capacity to account for it. The order continues to generate movement, and the environment can no longer absorb it. Scale becomes visible first, not in numbers, but in reach. Actions intended to be contained begin to propagate beyond their assigned frames. Effects appear in areas that were not part of the original sequence. The system records this expansion without redefining it. Loss is registered incrementally. Reports note depletion, degradation, absence. Each instance is logged against expected variance. The expectation is outdated, but it remains authoritative. Coordination degrades without collapsing. Signals are still sent. Confirmations still arrive. They arrive too late to be useful, but the system does not distinguish between timeliness and existence. Receipt is treated as success. Resources are committed beyond recovery because the order demands completion. Withdrawal is not defined as an option. The language allows only progression or delay, and delay has already been exhausted. What fails is not discipline, but proportion. The scale of consequence exceeds the scale of response available within the structure. The system reacts by applying measures designed for smaller failures. They are precise, correct, and ineffective. There are no acts of defiance, no breakdowns of command. Individuals continue to operate within their assigned parameters. The machinery holds together even as its output becomes destructive to itself. The environment no longer resembles the conditions assumed by the order. Timelines overlap catastrophically. Movements intersect where separation was required. Contingencies trigger simultaneously, canceling each other out. The order contains no guidance for this state. The system does not stop. It cannot. Stopping would require a command equal in authority to the one already in motion, issued with perfect clarity and accepted at every level. No such command arrives. Instead, the order reaches its terminal phase. Completion is achieved not through success, but through exhaustion. Units reach limits that were never meant to be reached. Functions cease not because they are told to, but because they can no longer continue. The system records this as final status. The collapse is formalized through documentation. Actions are marked complete. Assets are listed as lost or expended. Timelines are closed. The language remains neutral, procedural, intact. There is no acknowledgement of design failure. The order is treated as executed. The fact that execution produced destruction rather than outcome does not alter its classification. The structure absorbs the event by reducing it to records. The sequence is archived. References are filed. Lessons are deferred. What remains is absence, not chaos, but quiet. The quiet of systems that have finished what they were built to do, regardless of result. The order worked exactly as designed, and the design allowed no other end. Afterward, the structure remains. The order is no longer active, but it is not repudiated. It transitions into record. Documents are reclassified. References are reassigned to archives accessible only through procedure. The language used to describe the event is the same language that governed its execution. There are reviews, but they are administrative. They focus on compliance, timing, and documentation. The question is not whether the order should have existed, but whether it was followed correctly. The conclusion is consistent. It was. Responsibility disperses naturally. Each level confirms that it acted within its mandate. Each report aligns with the one above it. No contradiction emerges because the system was designed to prevent one. What cannot be reconciled is simply omitted. The order itself is no longer discussed directly. It becomes a reference number, a case, an entry in a sequence of actions that preceded it and followed it. The system moves forward without pause. Those who remain adjust to new routines. Positions are refilled. Equipment is redistributed. Training schedules resume. The structure absorbs loss the way it absorbs everything else. By continuing, there is no formal silence imposed. Silence occurs because there is no procedural space for reflection. Reflection would require acknowledgement of uncertainty, and uncertainty has no designated channel. The order does not appear in future briefings as a warning. It appears only as precedent. Its existence reinforces the authority of the process that produced it. The lesson, if any, is embedded indirectly. Adherence was maintained. New orders begin to move through the same pathways. They use similar language. They rely on the same assumptions. The machinery that carried the failure forward has not been altered, because from its perspective, it did not fail. The system remains intact precisely because it can absorb consequence without assigning meaning. Loss becomes data. Absence becomes notation. Outcome becomes classification. Somewhere within the structure, fragments of the event persist as incomplete records, unexplained discrepancies, closed files that are rarely accessed. They do not disrupt function. They do not demand resolution. The order fades from attention, but not from influence. It exists as proof that the system can act decisively, completely, and without hesitation. That it can carry an instruction from conception to conclusion, without interruption. Nothing in the structure signals that this is dangerous. The pathways remain open, the protocols unchanged. Authority continues to move downward, certain of its own coherence. Another order is already forming, using the same templates, the same assumptions, the same confidence in design. And when it begins to move, it will encounter no resistance, because the system remembers only that the last one was followed.